Good morning, everyone. Victorious, wonderful to see you back. Did you have a nice day off yesterday? Good. Well, we're going to call on you in a little bit, but we're actually going to start with the reading that we did yesterday just to remind us of what we are all about. And I'm just looking forward to hearing how it went for everyone. I don't know if you saw the YouTube yesterday, Vicki, but this will get you on the same page because we put the great challenge before the whole community yesterday, and I can't wait to hear how it went. I did hear a lot of mumbling going on at Namaste. Return, 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 return. Apparently, someone tattooed it onto their arm. Who was it that you tattooed it onto your arm? Just as a reminder, a little R to remind her to return. So let me read this. Well, before we do that, let's do our opening affirmation. Let me go ahead and put this up. And we'll do this together. Here we go. I am as God created me. If I remain as God created me, fear has no meaning. Evil is not real, and misery and death do not exist. I am as God created me. So it is. So we have been talking about projection and the importance of the return to love, the return to that sacred self that we are so accustomed to running away from. We're going to talk today in a little bit of why we run away from that sacred self. What is the pain that is there, the wound perhaps, that forces us to not hold still and just to take full responsibility for everything that we feel. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but let's begin by just quickly reading through the lesson from yesterday to get us back on the same page. I'll just read it from my phone. The split within your mind makes the simple seem difficult and the difficult seem simple. There is a simple answer to all your problems, and here it is. The problems you think you have already been solved. Isn't that good news? The problems that you think you have already been solved. Can it be more simple than that? The split mind is determined to make you believe that it's possible to achieve the impossible. It's impossible for you to leave the mind of God, and yet you continue to assert that you can and that you have left the mind of God. You do so by leaving yourself with a capital S, abandoning yourself, or projecting your unhealed judgments onto others so that you won't see how simple it is to undo all judgments. So we're not dealing with that, we'll call it this sacred wound that can only be healed by holding still and seeing there is no reason for the wound itself, because in reality, the sin that we think we committed in reality never happened at all. But we'll come back to that. If you decided to watch your mind and count the number of times you leave yourself to protect your unhealed judgments, to project your unhealed judgments onto other people, you would be shocked. I'm sure a lot of you were yesterday. It's so natural to the split mind that you don't even notice when you do this. Judgments begin in the mind and are then spoken by the tongue. This is how you justify the existence of the world you think you see. What would happen if you reversed this habit and begin building one that leads to your release instead of your bondage? Wouldn't that be amazing? A habit that contributes to your release from all pain. Begin by noticing when you speak about another person in either the positive or a negative manner. Then return to yourself, to the truth within you, by stopping whatever conversation you're having. Maybe pick a word to say that will signal that signal your mind that you're making a new choice, a word like return. This tells your split mind that you're aware of its trick and refuse to play the ego's game. Even if you practice this 50 or 150 times, you'll begin to feel the beginning of power growing inside you. This is you returning to you, and it's meant to lift your mind toward heaven. Once this energy begins to build inside you, you're ready to take the next step. Now that you have gained practice in stopping the judgments from being spoken, you can begin watching the source of the projected judgments and stopping them before they even reach the tongue. Whenever you think a separating thought about another person, say the chosen word that leads you back to you. If your word is return, then think it and release the thought. This will be very difficult in the beginning because you've become so proficient in thinking judgmental thoughts about others, all for the purpose of keeping your mind off your own holiness and perfection. How strange. Once again, as you become consistent in doing this, the power growing inside you will increase to the point that you will no longer be able to maintain your split awareness of self. Then your self, with a capital S, will reign. And then you'll begin to see what has always been seen by God. And you will know what God has always known. So, how many of you, in putting this to practice yesterday, began to realize that your mind is actually a projection machine? All you have to do is pay attention and you begin to see that, wow, I mean, this mind, that's all it wants to do is project, project, project. It is a machine, and it's so, it's not even subtle, but we're just so used to it that we don't really even notice it anymore. We just do it. It's just such a normal thing to look at another person and say, oh, I don't like his hat.
I have my own problems with that.
We're projection machines. And so this is what needs to be interrupted. We have to remember that the ego's system of thought is maintained through what we call a guilt loop, okay? The spinning in a circle, because it doesn't really go anywhere. The separation and the solution to that separation occurred in an instant. Time was over in an instant. But what we do is we play it out. We play it out in this circle, and we make something that happened in only an instant seem like a very long time. We stretch it out so that we don't have to deal with that truth. And so we maintain it through this loop of guilt, which needs to be interrupted in order for us to see that we are guiltless, that there's nothing that needs to be forgiven. Otherwise, we just keep spinning on that track, like that dog that I've used in the example many times, tied to a stake, but running in a circle, thinking it's going somewhere because it's running very fast. It must be going somewhere. It's running fast, right? That's what we think. We think because we're always projecting or because we're always doing something that we must be going anywhere, instead of realizing that the solution to the problem came the instant that the problem was in the mind. The instant it came into the mind, it was solved, because it's impossible to leave the heart and the mind of God. But we keep playing it out to see if it's possible. Let's try this way, let's try another. But it's all really about projecting. And the more we keep projecting, the longer we can keep that going, the harder it's going to be for us to see the truth, the simplicity of salvation. And the reason we do that, I actually wrote down, someone said something at breakfast, so I wrote this sentence down. The perceived pain of separation is so great, we don't think we can stand it unless we project it onto others. The perceived pain, it's not real pain, because once again, the problem was solved already. God's grace is eternal. But the perceived pain, that comes from attempting to make the impossible possible or the unreal real. The perceived pain of that separation, it's so great within us. We're sure that there has to be some kind of a punishment for this. But if it was solved the instant it happened, there is no punishment for it. But we believe that, so the only solution is to keep the pain out here. Does that make sense? Because the moment we hold still within it and ask for the Holy Spirit's guidance to allow it to be healed, it is. But we don't know that. So the typical human response is to keep projecting, keep it out here. Now, one of the things that we talked about yesterday was we don't talk about anyone unless they're right there, even good things. Because even the good things that we say about other people, those are projections too. Because we don't know anything. But what happens if there's something that we do need to say to someone? I was talking to Larry and Diane about this yesterday. Well, of course, the solution is you go to them separately, individually, and you first take responsibility for what you're feeling. And if something needs to be said, you say it to them directly. What we don't, the projection mainly happens when we do it without that person there. Oh, did you hear about ... That's the foundation of the ego's thought system. Did you hear about ... We just love to gossip because it keeps that loop alive. It keeps that guilt loop spinning so that we don't have to deal with the fact, the truth, that it's already done. The solution has already come. It's already been healed. So just hold still. And if it's painful for a moment, let it be painful for a moment. Don't run away from it. So I don't want to say too much because I want to hear from a few other people about what their experience was. But before we do that, I'm going to turn to Victoria. You weren't here with us yesterday, but I wanted to make sure that you at least heard the reading and had an idea of what we're doing. And anything you want to share about projection, we would love to hear it.
Oh, well, I love this. And I want to say, Father James, how eminently practical you are. And I'm so grateful to be able to say it directly to you and not about you.
Thank you.
But, that's what this great shift is that we're in. Leaving the world of separation is leaving the mechanical business of projecting. Separation is nothing but a loop of guilt and projecting it out. And what you described is the perfect description of how projection maintains a sense of separation with some dark, hidden, terrible sin that we're trying to avoid all the time in case we get punished for it. And that just keeps everything going. So if we have a choice, we can either live on the loop of projecting and separation, or the great threshold is open to us all, which is the threshold of living in grace, living in who we are. Today's workbook lesson: I am one self, united with my Creator, with my brothers and sisters, with all of creation. And instead of using our mind to continue to project and plan and figure things out, I would say, I was trying to, as you were saying it, what would be one word? What my experience is that we live receiving. We receive the present moment. We receive what is. And rather than label it, we look and say, well, what is this? Show me. It's that natural oneness, that state my Father and I are one, that state of praying ceaselessly, that state of natural communion. That's the land of grace. And we all have a choice to live there all the time. And some of us live there some of the time, or by accident, or we get in a groove and we're there. But we have been given the ability, especially those that are called to today in this room, we've had enough training in these healing arts to make it and let it be that simple, that our problems have been solved. All of our problems we're just projecting, and all of our solutions is to stop doing that and living simply by being present receiving the present, living in the grace of inner direction. Now we live from inspiration and inner direction that's natural. You may not hear a voice talking to you, and clouds may not open, and it may not be a big dramatic thing. But grace brings with it a natural knowing that soothes the heart, that fills us with purpose, fills us with, I don't know, fills us with ease. And I guess it fills us with deep peace. When Jesus said, "My peace I give to you," this was the peace that is being given to us all in every instant if we would choose to take it. And this is the best little description you gave of how we avoid receiving the grace of the moment. So it does mean staying out of the past or the future, and it does mean not labeling anything or anyone as good or bad, but receiving. Because when we receive one another, we flow into the natural communion. There are natural spiritual ties that is already what we are, that is part of our oneness. And the only way that we block it is by projecting. There's not a lot of ways, so it is simple. We stop projecting and we start receiving one another and looking within. What does this mean? How should I be with this? And the answers are always also very simple. When we don't know what a situation is, how should I look at Ukraine? How should I look at Putin? The answers come very simply. This is your brother calling for love. Answer the call with your love. Answer the call with your recognition of your oneness. Answer the call right here and right now. That's the difference between living in projection and living in grace. And every one of us can do it all the time. It is a matter of motivation, I guess, and consistency. And what better way to be consistent when you have a family, a whole tribe of you doing it together? So I'm all in. I love this. And actually, today I decided, because I do the workbook lessons of the course, I decided, I'm going to do as Jesus asked. The workbook lessons started in the last few days of please take 5 minutes every hour and just sit with this lesson. I am one self, united with my Creator. That's today's. So I've been doing it. I set my Alexa or the clock for every hour on the hour, 5 minutes. And so that's one way. For me, it's always a game. It's a game of praying ceaselessly, of listening and receiving and being present. And it's more than a game. It is the joy that we receive by literally bringing the kingdom of heaven to this realm, to earth, to exist, because it exists in our consciousness, in the way we relate to one another, in our brotherhood, in our shared purpose. When it exists there, it exists here in time, and there is the flag planted right there on earth as it is in heaven. So thank you, Father James.
Thank you, Victoria. As you were sharing, something came to my mind, so I typed it out really quick, and it says, "A healed mind never projects, but only extends what is true and truly seen. An unhealed mind always projects and never extends what is truly true and truly seen." So you are truly seen. That's the key. You are truly seeing this in every moment, no matter what. Even if you choose to not truly see yourself, you are truly seen if you would only choose to see this. If we would only choose to see ourselves as we were created. What was yesterday's lesson? I am as God created me. We just need to keep remembering and keep coming back to that. I am whole and holy as I was created. There's nothing I can do or have done or could ever do to change that. But the need of the mind to continue to project guilt onto our brothers and our sisters, that's the very thing that keeps us from realizing that I am as God created me. So here's what we're going to do. I want to begin by looking out here to our Namaste Village family and see if there's anyone who would be brave enough to come and sit next to me and share anything about their experience yesterday, returning catching the projection and then returning to self. Anyone want to come up? Someone's going to be brave. Come on. And those of you in the Zoom room, I'm going to be calling on you guys next. So, but I need at least, okay, here's Beth. I knew Bethel would be brave. Come on up, Bethel. And if you would hold this mic.
I will. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, I should take my glasses off. I went to the bank yesterday with my hat on and my glasses on. The first thing they say is, you have to take your hat and your glasses off. Because I have a mask on too. So you cannot tell who I am.
Do you remember the days when the only people that walked into banks with masks were bank robbers?
That's right. Well, they're still worried about that because they make you take them off. They can't make you take your mask off, but they can make you take your hat and glasses off. So yesterday, really interesting. And here was my question. If I'm telling the story about myself, but another person is involved, can I say that other person? But it's a lesson that I learned.
That's a good question. And this came up a couple of times yesterday. What's the difference between projection and just observation? Or projecting something or just noticing something through another person? I would say in the beginning, it's best just cut it all off, because the mind is going to have all sorts of justifications and examples of exceptions. Well, I'm just talking about that person, but I'm really just, looking at them because, they're showing me something about me. Yeah, but you're talking about that person.
Yes.
So once again, it's like smoking and trying to stop smoking. Best just to stop.
Right.
And how was your experience in doing that yesterday?
Well, it was hard.
Was it hard?
And what the ego did, the ego is so tricky. So the ego says, well, pay attention to how much they're talking. Well, no, it doesn't matter how much they're talking about other people. It matters how much I'm thinking and talking about other people.
Because the instant you're thinking about what they're doing, you're projecting onto them for projecting.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking, whoop, there's one, there's two, there's three. And I'm counting in my head. And I said, wait a minute, this isn't a lesson for them. This is a lesson for me.
Well, the key is to begin to gently realize how insidious the ego mind, the split mind is in doing just that.
Yes.
And it literally has your destruction in mind.
Oh, yeah.
Your the sickness, pain, and death that it believes you must endure to escape this unhealable problem. This is what the ego believes, that you are bound to grow old, sick, and die.
Mm-hmm.
So it's bent upon your destruction instead of the release that can come when you are able to finally see as God sees and love as God loves. And instead of projecting guilt to extend only holiness. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Of course. Everything you're saying makes sense to me, James. That's why I'm here.
And by the way, for those of you out in Zoom land who don't know this, Bethel was really the first one to answer the call, because even before I moved here and started Namaste, Beth heard that I was thinking about starting a community. So she just packed her bags and moved to Mexico. And then she got here and found out I was gone. I had left. But she hung in there until I came back. And then we had Namaste, and she was the first to arrive. So we're so grateful.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bethel. Anyone else here at Namaste want to say anything? Okay, here comes Chris. Come on up, Chris.
So right after session, I walked up to my casita and I saw someone who didn't attend session. And I went, return.
It happens quick, doesn't it? Usually within seconds it'll happen. Hey, Kathleen, I see that you have unmuted yourself. Did you want to say something?
Sure. So many thoughts are running through my mind.
Kathleen, you're kind of halfway between our Namaste room here and the Zoom, because you're at Namaste, but you're in your room on Zoom. So you qualify.
Okay. All right. There were a couple of things, and one was that I noticed someone else in the mode and immediately thought, oh, that's what we were talking about. So that's return, return, return. And then I also thought, well, what do I do? Do I say it out loud, or is it a matter of self-discovery for the other person? Because isn't that how we really learn? We learn, or at least it is the way I do. When I discover in myself and I make the discovery myself, then it's mine. I own it, and I can apply it. So that was an interesting observation. And I wanted to tell you that Martha Creek and I had this very same discussion about the difference between observation and the projecting. How do we know? And I believe we arrived at and her wisdom, and I surely trust. Martha's not here. Can I say this?
Yes, you can.
Well, we all know Martha has so much wisdom. And she was with us in November. And we had so many really great conversations. But she said, I really believe it has to do with how you feel. If you feel charged, if you have feelings about it. But if you're just in neutral, kind of observing, then there's a difference.
Mhm.
I think that was helpful to me. And the other thing that I just wanted to mention to you all is that I see so many parallels in this conversation about Course in Miracles and unity, because unity understands thoughts held in mind, produce after their own kind. And so there's a lot of courses as well in unity that lead us back to this idea. I do love in the Course of Miracles the idea, the conversation and the labeling of the activity as projection. And that is helpful to defining how strong ego is. Ego is so tricky, so tricky. And at the end of the day, the conversation with ego could be the score. I think somebody said that several sessions back. What's the score today? Ego 5, me 2, me, my true self, my spiritual being is 5, ego 2, to take a look at that. So thanks for calling on me. I was having lots of thoughts about this and was glad to share it.
Thank you, Kathleen. And I really like what Martha said about the difference between projection and observation. It's about the charge. If there's anything in us that is judging, labeling, whatever it may be on the other person, but if you're just observing something in order to learn more about yourself, that is a good use of observation. But if you feel any charge at all, look at it more closely, because you're probably projecting. Baraka, we're going to go ahead and go to the Zoom room now. Did you have anything you'd like to share? If you're muted, you got to unmute yourself. I can't hear you, Baraka. You're actually unmuted, but you're not coming through. He said, one moment. Okay, well, while Baraka is doing that, is there anybody else who would like to share in the Zoom room? Who else is brave out there and wants to share their projection stories? Okay, Baraka talking.
I would.
Okay,
Okay.
is that, can you hear me now?
Somebody else? Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Well, I've tried to figure out what would be a safe a way to approach this without worrying about trampling on borderlines and crossing the line and how effective is this and how effective is that. And the only thing that came to my mind was to dwell in the word namaste. There's only one legitimate thought that I can have about myself as the capital S and my brother as the capital S, the mind of Christ mind. And that is that I am light, my brother is light, and I see the light in each of us. And anything else is a judgment. Anything else is a projection outside of myself. So I am myself, the Christ mind. My brother is the Christ mind, and anything beyond that is just treading on separation. And that's how I approach this. And all of a sudden I didn't have any need for the word return anymore because there was nothing to return from.
Nice. Well, namaste would be a good word too, because it is a blessing. So let every projection turn into a blessing. I like that. So we're going to go to a call, Dev, and then we'll also go over to Judy, and then we're gonna end our session. But a call, Dev, why don't you go ahead and begin?
I actually somewhere along the line was introduced to this practice quite a while ago, and initially I was horrified at my thoughts, and started practicing that, and it was great. And yesterday, maybe I wasn't paying too close attention at first because I wasn't having those return. And then they started coming more. So, okay, hello, I remember you. And during the meeting yesterday, what kind of threw me was, what does he mean? When you said, even if you're thinking positive thoughts about another person. And I sort of got it, and I mostly didn't get it, which was, don't look outside yourself. But, you know, if I think something judgmental about another person, I'm looking in the mirror. But if I have a wonderful thought about a person, I'm looking in the mirror. So that confused me, you know. And again, you know, judgment, observation, or discernment. So I think about Johannes, and if I think, oh, Johannes is so beautiful and so evolved, and then if I think so much more than me, then return, because that's a comparison and a judgment. But if I think about Johannes and I just get all warm and mushy and oh, I love you so much, then why is that a problem? So I got a little confused, but on the other hand, I also got just be present. Mm-hmm. But even there, you know, like this morning, I was eating my breakfast and I was just loving every morsel of food that was going in my mouth and thinking, well, I'm being really present to eating breakfast. So, and as so often happens in my life, a Rumi quote popped into my head. He always has something to say about everything. So it's just a quatrain. I thought I'd read it. Well, it's actually 5 lines. Come to the orchard in spring. There is light and wine and sweethearts in the pomegranate flowers. If you do not come, these do not matter. If you do come, these do not matter.
It's interesting. And thanks for bringing up that.
I'd love to hear a response, because You
Well, I'll
know,
just give a very short one. This is, as we said yesterday, a Buddhist practice, and that was part of the Buddhist practice, is to spend time just being fully present with yourself, and not even projecting good thoughts onto people unless they're there. Because first of all, let's say take Johannes for example. You're projecting what feels like really good ideas and feelings onto Johannes, but Johannes might not be there right now, so we don't know. And it's really just more than anything a practice of mindfulness. The problem is that when we judge the difference between good thoughts and bad thoughts, well, I'm projecting bad thoughts right now, so I'll stop that. But here I'm projecting good thoughts, so maybe I should continue that. We're judging. You see, it's still a judgment, and we're still on that seesaw back and forth. So this is really a practice of mindfulness to bring the mind back to where it really should be, which is on the release from guilt. And in the beginning, it's, as the Buddhists say, it's a good way to begin by not projecting anything that is even good, just holding still within it. So we're going to move on because we're going a bit long, and I know Judy is going to share, and then Leslie, if you have something very fast, and then we're going to close it up. So Judy, go ahead.
Thank you, Father James. Yesterday, taking this concept of just changing my thoughts when I'm thinking of someone else was so helpful. I had a little bit of a discourse with my husband, and it just was unsettled. So I thought, I'm going for a walk, and I'm walking, thinking, I'm thinking, Judy, this happened a while back, and I'm still carrying it, like that monk carrying a woman across the river. I'm still carrying it. Just stop it. You'll feel much better. And I listened. Done. Came home, had a nice feeling again. And to me, this is what I'm meant to be doing, is having this nice feeling of love and grace coming through me, not trying to sort this out. So brief and all, thank you so much. Love you.
Yeah.
You're a great guide.
Well, that's exactly it. We do carry these things around like rocks, like boulders. Just let it go. Be free. That's really the purpose of this exercise, is to notice how many times we do pick up those stones and then carry them around in our pockets. And then let's get practice at taking them out and laying them back down on the road. The journey's a lot lighter if we can learn how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Leslie, you're going to close us up here.
Okay, real quick. I love the practice. It's so simple. What happened with me was I noticed the first thing and I got a smile on my face. I said, thank you. And you mean that was really all I needed to do. So I did that. I was so happy when I noticed my thoughts and just said, thank you, with a big smile on my face. And literally, that kept me present. That's it.
A big smile is always a good sign. That's when you know you're doing something. So I have being a happy learner. That's, this doesn't have to be heavy and morose. We can treat this as a happy game that happy children play. Why not? So my question then is, should we try another day?
Yeah. How about another year?
Let's try another day. Let's just keep returning, just keep noticing and keep coming back to self, to the higher self, by realizing just how adept these projection machines are. But if we don't oil the machine, or if we don't put gasoline into the engine, guess what happens? It ultimately is going to run down. So that's what we're doing here. We're just going to stop feeding it so that it loses its power. So let's try another day, and we'll check in again tomorrow and see how we're doing. Okay? So thank you, everyone. I knew this would be a beautiful challenge, and it certainly has been that. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and close with our prayer of protection. So if you choose to stand, you're welcome to. And let's send us off with this beautiful prayer. Here we go. The light of God surrounds us.
Surrounds us.
I am the
I am the light of God.
The love
The
of
love of God.
us. I am the love of
The love of God.
the power
The
of
love
God.
of God. Yes.
I am
I am the power of God.
the presence of God watches over
Watches
us.
over us.
I am the
I am
presence
the
of God.
presence of God.
Wherever
Where we are.
God is, and all is well.
Is
Namaste, namaste, namaste.
Hey.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.
Bye,
I love you all.
everybody.
Bye
Have a
bye for
beautiful
now.
day.
Thank you.